Pretty much the one thing stopping me from using Starfall hitboxes or prop create custom for armor was the fact that it wasn't dupable. And that is not the case anymore. So it's actually pretty fun to mess with this stuff, but depending on what you want to do with it, I still wouldn't really recommend trying it because you might end up with quite a big headache. Reason being is compatibility. Well, first of all, it requires Starfall. Then it requires a later version of Starfall anyway. And also, it is dupable with Advanced Duplicator 2, but parenting doesn't work, so you have to spawn it unparented. So it's just a little bit off. I suppose I already have a video about create custom so far, but I guess to go back through it. So the meshes have to be convex only, which means that the shape can't go in on itself. And you might be wondering, well, if the shape can't go in on itself, how do you have the shape here? Well, that's another thing. The hitboxes can be made up of several hitboxes. So you can almost see how I cut this up, but I have this all as a part of the same hitbox, which is why this is allowed to exist. So again, a hitbox can be comprised of many child hitboxes. Like I said, there are a few limitations with this, mostly just from server to server. So like I said, is Starfall up to date? Is it not like a several-year-old version or something like that? But also just importing these meshes as hitboxes. But again, these are going to vary from server to server. So I should have probably specified that. So vertices can't be too close. I believe that's just a blanket thing. The hitbox can't be too big. You can't have too many child hitboxes. And the actual file size or the vertex count of the mesh can't be too big. Can't have too many vertices, otherwise it won't work. It will error out the chip you try to import it with, or spawn the mesh with. And another thing is my tank over here. For some reason it doesn't dupe with parenting, or it won't duplicate with parenting properly. You'll get an error, so I have to spawn it unparented and then use something else to parent it. Otherwise, it is really cool. So once again, the main reason for wanting to use this is for odd armor shapes that actually match the visual model of the tank. So making anything curved or rounded in ACF, it was pretty rough. Another thing is this is something like 27 pieces in total, and I'm not using it for everything here. So there's a few primitives just to fill in the gaps because I was being lazy or whatnot. But you minimize the amount of pieces your armor model is made out of. Instead of something like, I don't know, 80 props for a hitbox, now you have, for me, 27. And this is also nice because, again, if you want to focus on the visuals of a tank or like weird shapes for the armor, for the overall shape of the tank, you don't have to make them out of a bunch of tiny pieces that separate the health of your props up into a bunch of different pieces that basically is going to result in weaker armor. I can just have this front of the turret, this piece here. This is just one armor piece and it shares the same health pool. So overall the armor is going to be stronger if you again want to make a shape like this. But yes, the armor does actually work. It does block shots. It's able to die as well because AP exists in ACF. And
ACE
as well. Yep, we can see turret face. Doesn't seem to ricochet much off the turret face, but it is rather flat. Oh, there you go. Upper hole. That seems to go in kind of high. I think we can take 2 on the upper hole. And there's areas of the tank that I can just penetrate out, right? I guess the fuel tanks don't want to blow up. Said. I guess the one thing that doesn't work is these are custom props, and the sort of death debris they leave behind doesn't really... Well, for one, I have it disabled, but it'll just drop in every model, basically. So yeah, that lower glacis is probably gone now. Let's Oh, that's still there. Oh, there we go. One fun thing about this is that the cupola is actually real. I think it usually dies in like one hit from this though. Oh, no. I was alive for a bit. Yeah. From there, I guess it is just a regular case of, you know, you armor your tank how you would any other tank. So the way I do that is going to be based on what I intend to get shot by. So for me, that is a 100mm cannon. Let's just say it can do 200mm of penetration with AP. Which, speaking of AP does the most damage, so along the front of the tank you're going to want to have the maximum amount of health you can. Ideally you would like that all over the tank, but well, increasing the health everywhere just makes the armor plating heavier. So typically I will go for neutral ductility along the sides and rear. Yeah, so you can see anyway, front of the tank, we're trying to stop a 100mm AP shell, so a little bit more armor than that, and then just maximum ductility, and there you go. Same for the turret. Turret's actually a bit funnier because it is hemispherical. So some places it's weaker where it's flatter, other places it gets insanely thick. Then there's the cupola, which I am going to say is a bit of a harder target to hit. And yes, that does serve a purpose because that needs to be there for my chair to actually fit. But anyway, back to talking about the armor. So side armor is a funny thing because what do you do with it? Better view of the armor profile. So yeah, it does have that funny Soviet-like slope on the side of it, which I still need to test because I'm not sure if a ricochet will bypass this or not. I'm gonna have to test that. But what do you do with the side armor? Because like how much side armor do you realistically need? Well, so again, consider the 100mm cannon example. So along the front of the tank we're good, but obviously if we get shot in the side of the tank, we need significantly more armor over a significantly bigger area, which is, well, just going to be heavier, significantly heavier. So what can you do with the side armor? Well, instead of being shot flat on the side, you can see, okay, what kind of angle can I present to stop a threat? What kind of angle am I happy with presenting to stop a 100mm shell? And this seems to be about the angle. So if I were to look at my tank from this angle, that's a decent amount of side showing, about as much side as the front, as far as what to shoot at. So I'd say that's kind of an okay amount of armor at a 20-degree angle, or 70 I guess. You can still sort of defend or deflect against a 100mm AP cannon shot. As far as other things you would want to protect against, so I was thinking of like a 30mm autocannon, and you can see you can present a bigger, show more of your side armor. Can't show flat though, because if you show flat they pin. It's just not enough. But basically, yeah, when armoring your tank, you just think about what are you going to be shot by. And for side armor, it helps to think of it, how much angle you can show before your side armor starts to fail, basically. Now the funny thing about this tank is that you don't really angle this tank, because you actually make the frontal armor a bit weaker because it is rounded, but doesn't seem to be by a whole lot. You can see that on the other side it does get quite a bit thick. It's just useful to think about armor as a as more binary than, oh, I have 300mm of armor. That's enough armor, right? 300 is more than 250, right? That'll be useful. Well, it's what kind of breakpoints you hit, basically. As for how I import my hitboxes, so I'm actually using Chisel, which is the same thing I was using in the last video, talking about ACF3 ACE. And overall, the it's the same. However, I've added 2 new functions because I wanted to be lazy. So previously, no mesh concave, spawn custom, blah blah blah. But if I just want to spawn a thing, and I don't want instances or anything, because again, these are dupable, I've written a new spawn single function as well as a spawn all in directory. So that'll, every OBJ it sees in a file folder somewhere, it'll just spawn all those on top of the Starfall chip, so you can move them around and stuff. Now I actually want to take a look at exporting things for chisel. So I think you can just use any piece of modeling software you want. However, I'm just going to select this object and I'm going to export it as a OBJ. I'm exporting this cube and I'm just gonna, I don't know, give it a name. This cube, I guess. Doesn't have to have underscores, however I like to have underscores, so. Okay, there we go. And if I actually look where that saves to, where I just saved that, I should say. This is going to be in your Gary's Mod data folder, and because this is for Starfall, we go to SF file data. I have a little folder here for myself, but other people can put folders in here too. Hitbox mesh, and I saved it to the test folder, so there you go, testcube.obj. Let us import that. So what do you need to import it? Well, I'm just going to duplicate the spawn single function, and that was in the test folder, so it's going to be test slash and the name of the file, which was test_cube, and let's see what happens. Yeah, so there we go, we spawned that test cube. It's cube. But one thing I feel like I neglected to mention was that you can, or how do you join meshes? So it depends on how you export the mesh. So if I select all of these and just re-export this, it's gonna re-export it as test cube. If I go ahead and do it again, so now you can see we have all of those cubes and they are technically the same prop. Or yeah, they are hitboxes of the same hitbox, if that makes any sense. But I guess for armor, so visually, again, I have to cut up the armor a certain kind of way, and I have a different recording that I am probably going to show of that. Can you take the mesh you already modeled and just import that? Well, no. So let's go see what I did to my turret face after I cleaned it up. So you can see, yep, it's split up into a bunch of different pieces. You might think these pieces are individual props. Not really, because a hitbox can be comprised of several, you can think of child hitboxes. So you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I'm gonna put another one down here for the collar. It's just not modeled in Blender at all. So hypothetically 8. Let's make another group. Let's see. So we'll call this turret face test, and we'll basically join all these up and see basically what happens. There we go. So we have one piece. Can we import this into Gary's Mod like this? Well, we actually can, but the problem is, save that, put it down somewhere. So you can see what happens basically. The hitbox must be convex, and you can see, even though we have the geometry here, that all gets optimized away when we import it. And I suppose the last thing to talk about with using this as armor is, again, you can't spawn it parented. You can spawn it with other constraints, it seems. Like just the will, it seems to work fine, but for some reason parenting doesn't work. Not sure why, but... So what I've done to get around that is the good old classic thing that parents your armor and self-destructs. Yep, that's all it does. Okay, but here's a little E2 I have. It's not particularly impressive or anything. Basically, it just you have a gate that you want to parent a bunch of entities to, and the entities are represented in an entity marker. So I have 3 of them for my one for my hull, one for my gun mantlet, and one for my turret. So currently the tank weighs basically 40 tons on the nose. and something less than 30 tons is just for the armor. The physical structure of the tank is quite heavy, so it could stand to lose 5 tons easily. And it will probably lose that much weight on ACF3 because, well, I don't need a physical turret ring, or cannot use a physical turret ring. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the custom armor on this thing. Pretty fun to use, even if I won't be able to use it everywhere. But just being able to have a shape like this actually match without getting really sad trying to model it out of props is very nice. But I think that'll do it for this update. A few more things I want to add to the tank, and so until then, see you around.